How you doing?
How you doing?
I'm Art Crandall.
And I'm Art Crandall.
This is Cooking with the Crandalls again.
How you doing?
Today, what we're doing, whether you're, practicing Christianity, being a good Christian during Lent, or you just like fish, that's what we're doing today.
Yep, it's funny. I used to have a boss, and he came from Utah, and he used to love it on Fridays because there was always fresh fish. So it was really cool. So today, we're going to do a whole episode on seafood. So, get started.
All right, yeah, when you're done. Okay, well, anyway, what we're going to start with is a fish stock. Now, this is going to be a basis for a soup. We could use water, but I prefer a fish stock because what it's going to do is it's going to allow the flavor of the fish to sink in. Now, you usually want to use bones of a fish or any additional parts that you're not going to use, straightforward.
Yeah.
But because they're going to later be disposed of.
Yeah.
But to get it started, what I'm going to do is, to start the stock, is going to be, I'm going to need to sweat the vegetables. So what we're going to need to do is cut off what we call mirepoix for a start of the vegetables.
We don't have to turn the heat up or anything to sweat these.
Well, you know what? I'm going to do that when I put the fat in there, Dad. Take your time. Take your time, all right?
Yep.
Now, I'm just going to, this is leeks. Most people don't really know about leeks, but they have salt inside them. So what I'm going to do is just take the remainders of the leeks, and I'm going to cut it an inch from the start of the white and cut it twice so it's in quarters.
Now, I'm sure you'll tell us about why you're doing that, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
What it does is it lets the flavor sink in, and plus this is the proper way to chop it up when you're going to dice it.
Oh.
Dad, did you want to explain something more while I'm washing these up?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, what we're really going to do today is we are going to have salmon as one dish. We're going to have haddock as another dish with breadcrumbs, and we're going to have a kind of a casserole, if you will, of assorted fishes and scallops and clams and a nice broth. So that's what we're going to have. And for dessert,
brownies.
Brownies. All right.
Commonly known to those in high school and college, but we're going to do it regularly this time.
Terrible. All righty. While you start doing that, I'm going to use my favorite Ritz crackers here. And the Ritz crackers, I'm going to use margarine and some tarragon leaves and some garlic salt. So what I'm going to be doing is smashing these Ritz crackers up, named after the Ritz Hotel, of course, and smash these up, and this will be a basis. So what I'm going to do, some people actually put the breadcrumbs in as it's cooking, but what I like to do is to cook the breadcrumbs and then put the spices in, let it seep in, and then you can put it in with the fish while it cooks.
Well, while he does that, what I'm still doing is I'm taking, you want a basis of mirepoix. A mirepoix usually has 4 ingredients in a soup or stock. It is celery, onion, carrots, and leeks. And that's just basically for the spice and flavor of that deal. But we'll be straining that out later. So I'm just going to cut it up, and you're going to cut it up also mirepoix, which is a rough chop.
So mirepoix is what are you going to do? You're going to do the mirepoix is the name of this stock thing?
Well, the thing is, the name mirepoix was after a famous figure, actually. Couldn't name which, but they named a bunch of sauces and stocks and vegetable cuts after famous people. It was called job security.
Is that right?
Yeah.
In France or something?
Yep.
Oh, what a riot.
Yeah, those French people again, right?
Yeah, those French, they do everything. That's why Julia went over there. This is Julia. All right, I am going to let the margarine melt in the pan, and while this is going on, Is there anything I can help you with over there?
You know what, Dad? Right now, I'm going to ask you to just pour a thin layer of oil in that front right stock pan over there.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm just going to ask you to turn the heat on a little bit so it will start to heat up.
Okay.
Just chopping more celery here, and soon we're going to sweat the vegetables in that oil over there. So.
Okay. Very good. I am going to also take this lemon, and what I'm going to do is take the lemon and add it to my breadcrumbs. Just a little flavor of lemon in there, and probably some Worcestershire sauce too, which would be really nice. So we want to just heat this up. This is heating up pretty well. Throw in the breadcrumbs here. Actually, the Ritz cracker breadcrumbs.
Having a little trouble there, Dad?
Oh, yeah.
Seems to me you got to work out again.
Well, you know what? It's an exact science here. What is this? Cooking is a formula, and baking's a formula? What did you say?
It is, baking is a science, but cooking is an art. But I like to turn that around, and I usually like to say, baking is a science, cooking is with art. So, you know, you got cooking
Cute,
with the Crandalls.
Cooking with the Crandalls, yeah. All right, I am going to throw some tarragon leaves in here. Tarragon's good for flavor. And then I'm going to throw some garlic salt in. Good for spicing. And then just kind of let that simmer, actually. What I can be doing, what we're going to be doing, actually, is I can get the fish now. I want to show you a couple of easy ways to make a salmon.
Okay, why don't you show us that?
All right.
Meanwhile, I'm just finishing up the chopping over here.
All right.
We should be soon with our stock. So,
cool.
What you're going to do after you cut it in quarters and wash it insides to wash off all the bits of sand and dirt in there is you're going to want to chop it up just right down. Rough chop, doesn't really matter the size. It's just putting it in there for flavor.
Okay. You know, the interesting thing about the fish, did you know that a fish, you ever see those, like The Perfect Storm and all those other shows where the fishermen put the fish on ice? You know why they do that?
Why do they do that?
Keep it fresh. And did you know that the best way to store fish is to not really freeze it, but to put it on ice, like a layer of ice?
On a layer?
Well, yep. The best way to store fish is with layers of ice in like a tin. And you put it in and cover it with ice, and for every degree, every 2 degrees above 32, it takes 1 day away from the fish's shelf life.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a difference between the oiled fish and the non-oiled fish there? I believe there is a difference. Regular non-oiled fish, that's 14 days, right?
If it's a non-oiled fish, like a cod or a haddock or something like that, the shelf life is a maximum of 14 days if it's kept at the 32 degrees on ice.
Oh, so that's maximum.
Yep, maximum. Okay. So every day above the, like 2 degrees above 32 takes away 1 day of shelf life.
Wow, didn't know that.
Yep.
That's what you get from having no life on the sea.
Well, you know what? I grew up 13 houses up from the ocean. And a lot of my friends and my dad's friends and stuff, they were fishermen and lobstermen. And so it was pretty cool. So I am going to throw a little bit of lemon in here, just ever so much, and then take it off the heat. And take a dash or two of Worcestershire sauce.
Now while he's doing that, I'm going to put the vegetables in there to sweat. And as soon as they're done sweating, we're going to add the fish, and we will start on our stock, actually. Might want to add a little more oil in there, Dad. It looks like you heated it up just a tad too much.
Now, what is olive oil? Is there a difference in the oils and the temperatures and stuff?
There actually is. When you're thinking about cooking and, well, baking actually too, the difference between olive oil, well, it has a lower smoke point actually. I'm sure you've heard of peanut oil, right?
Yeah.
Smoke point's around like 480, some ridiculous amount.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So if you put olive oil on the stove, what you're saying is it will smoke a lot quicker than peanut oil.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Didn't know that.
That's why, it's high grade. When they're using high grade for deep frying, they try to go with the best oil.
Which is?
Well, personally, you can use like a peanut oil for just sautéing anything. The smoke point is just ridiculously high, so it's not going to, smoke on you.
Yeah. The interesting thing about fish is, here's a quiz. You ready for this?
No, I'm not, actually.
If the fish stinks, like smells fishy, is that a good thing?
Oh, of course not.
No, absolutely
That's
not.
right. When you're receiving fish, you want to make sure it has no odor.
No odor.
Or very little fishy odor.
Yep. And if it is kind of like, what's the word? Mucusy or kind of like coated, kind of slimy or something, that usually means that they've put tri-poly something on it to kind of keep it, preserve it. So you better watch out for that. Now this salmon, fish basically, see this is a nice piece of fish right here, and fish on average, for every inch of thickness, it takes 10 minutes to cook at 450 degrees.
Really?
Yep. So, what should we do? Should we throw the tail away because it's not as thick as the front?
Of course not. What you want to do is you want to fold the tail under, so it's the same thickness, actually.
Very good. So, real quick, what is a really easy a recipe here is to take some mustard, some perhaps Grey Poupon or something like that.
Like a topping or like a marinade?
A topping or a marinade.
Well, I'm saying topping for like a garnish.
No.
Or a marinade to let that cook in.
I'm going to let it cook in like that. So I'm taking a little mayonnaise and a little of this Grey Poupon type of thing, and I'm just going to cover it with that. Simple. Simple, isn't it?
There's your Grey Poupon right there.
Now, if you get salmon, don't forget it's really high in the vitamin E or the one of those oils that are real good for you. Can't remember what it is.
Jeez.
See this? That's it. I'm going to throw this in the oven, 450 for 10 minutes. Okay?
Well, he's bending down and getting a hernia. I'm going to add the fish right here.
Okay.
Just going to make sure the onions are turning translucent, and when they do, that means they're ready. And we're just going to mix in the fish here. I actually might have to add a little more oil here, which misplaced somewhere. Someone must have misplaced it for me.
Well, you know what? I'll just, where you get the oil, let me just show you some fish. Two types of very nice white fish, if you will, is codfish, and haddock. Okay? These are both ground fish. Ground feeders, like along with flounder. Little different taste. I am going to, a lot of people like haddock. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put haddock and make part of it, just rip it open. Nothing fancy here, but just kind of throw it in. Take some breadcrumbs and throw it on. A couple dollops of butter or a margarine. Throw that on. And that should be about it. And I'm going to throw this in the oven. Real easy. Now the whole point of this was that a lot of the spices, along with the oil, the butter, margarine in this case, are in here already. So it's just going to seep right in. and make it good. So we'll throw this in for 10 minutes because it's about 1 inch.
Very interesting.
Yep.
Do you know anything more about fish growing up on the coast?
Yeah, I do, as a matter of fact. I know a lot about fish. What do you want to know about fish, as a matter of fact?
What do you got? I want to know all you got.
Well, one of the interesting things about fish is that people throw a lot of it away. There are some really ugly fish out there, but they taste really good. A monkfish or something like that. If you ever saw the head of the fish, you'd go like, oh, gross. But throw it away, you know? No. You cut the head off, and the meat is really delicious. Really? Yep. And you know what's interesting? Let me show you one thing. Scallops.
Where are you going?
Right here.
Oh, all right.
Sea scallops? I'm going to throw this in here too.
Just got to stir this a little bit more.
Now, sea scallops, did you know that you got to go to a reputable place to get sea scallops? Because a lot of times they'll take a skate, one of those like stingray type of creatures, and they catch it and they'll poke holes. They'll go boom, 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 boom. And it'll come out like that, and it's got the same consistency, but it's not a scallop.
So they'll try to cheat you and put something else in there for you.
Those rats. Yeah. That's right.
Watch out for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, what we're doing, still letting this in here. We're still stirring it, just letting it sit for a little bit more. That's going to want to sit. You're going to want to let that sit there, and pretty soon we'll be adding the white wine and the water. Because when you make a stock, you want to have 4. There's this thing called the magical number 4. Yeah. And what it is you need a nourishing element. That's number 1. The number 2 is the mirepoix, which we're doing, which for this recipe we're supposed to sweat. Number 3 is what's called a bouquet garni, which consists of peppercorn, bay leaf, thyme, and this is parsley. Really? But what you can do is most people throw parsley away after they've chopped off the tops for the garnish. Yeah. But since we're using this for spice, we keep the stems in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we throw them in there just like we're using the excess of the fish for the start of it. You may notice that this meat is very clear. Now, there may be a few remnants of what was cut off, but what was cut off was the silver skin, which is the excess skin and fat of the fish, which you really don't want to use. It's like a rough tissue, you know. It's going to screw up your meat.
Can you use that for the stock, though?
Of course you can.
Yeah, so nothing's wasted like that, huh?
You know what? I believe it was. Let me see here. It was the Egyptians, and they were the start, but then it was the Greeks who used every bit of food. They didn't waste anything. They practiced, what most people think the Native Americans were like, Yeah. And they did not use anything, and they used the remainder for the fish stock.
Isn't that interesting?
Which is basis for today.
Unbelievable.
And the fish insides were what was used because the whole fish was placed on a platter and cooked. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow. While you are doing this, what I'm going to do is I've purchased some clams, like minced clams. I'm going to just throw this in. You can use whatever you want for this type of almost a bouillabaisse. Is that, like a casserole or something? I don't know the technical terms or anything, but what I want here is just to have a little bit of clam juice. Have some clam juice, and I'll put it on the bottom, and put some breadcrumbs and stuff, and if you can cut some of that a little bit.
All right.
And then we'll put it in there and let it cook too.
Okay, why don't you hand me that bag then?
Okay.
Now, as I was cutting this up, what we were going to do for the bouquet garni is there's very different ways to prepare it. The most common is called a sachet, which is all 4 ingredients and in a cheesecloth. Now, usually we would practice that, but cheesecloth, didn't seem to be in our expenses.
It's not in the budget this week. All right.
So what we're just going to do is throw it in, and I'm going to strain it through what's called a chinois mousseline, or a chinois mousseline.
Chinois, what's that,
and that's
Japanese
a
or
very,
something?
actually, you know what? The chinois is used for the hats, the Chinese hats. That's what it was named for, actually.
Really?
Of course. And
Chinois, huh?
and it's very fine, so it's going to take out the impurities.
Wow. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just taking all of this, and I'm throwing some clam juice in here. I mean, how difficult is this? Even I can do it, you know? So, I'm going to put that in there. And I'm not going to put all the breadcrumbs in yet. Okay?
So
I'm going to leave some breadcrumbs.
Got to interrupt you for a second. Just going to add the cold water into that, and we're going to toss that in with the bouquet garni. Usually in a stock, you want to make sure that it's about 3 to 6 inches above the bones or whatever you're using to make the stock. So, just an interesting thing.
Okay. I am going to throw this in and let this cook for a while. Now, one of the things that we're also going to do is we're going to cook spinach, and we're just going to steam it. So the meals will present itself that there's some haddock, there's this mixed fish, there's a salmon, and the salmon's going to have that. We'll throw a little bit of cheese, Parmesan, and some cheddar on it, make it nice and kind of appealing. And then when it's all done, we'll have the fish, this whole stock that's going to bring a lot of juicy flavors together because we're dealing with different things here. And the salmon, which is very good by itself, as is the haddock.
And meanwhile, I'm just still adding the bouquet garni. You know what? Since we're making such a small amount, we're not going to really add a bunch of, spices to it, but we're going to add just a decent amount. Throw in a couple bay leaves. Can never go wrong because it's part of the recipe. And that should be it for that. But meanwhile, what do you got?
What I want to do real quick is I want to make some brownies, okay? So I want to make some nice chocolate brownies, so I'm taking a whole thing of margarine and I'm throwing some unsweetened chocolate.
Very interesting.
Yep.
But what I just did that you missed is that I just added the white wine.
Yep.
And what we're going to do is we're going to reduce that by the same amount that we had before the wine to concentrate the flavor, and then we're going to want to add the water.
Cool. Sweet.
Okay.
Now, we're making, this is real simple. I'm going to throw about a teaspoon of vanilla in there for flavor. And did you know, by the by, speaking about chocolate, that chocolate came from the old world, meaning the newly discovered world, down in the Aztec Indians and stuff. And Columbus was the first one to make the discovery of the new world of chocolate.
Well, what's very interesting is if you look at Spanish culture as a whole, did you know, even today, in half of Spanish culture, that they wake up and breakfast is no more than a cup of hot chocolate?
Really?
Yeah. It's very interesting how they took
Speaking
that back.
Speaking of the Spanish, that was Hernandez Cortez.
And Francisco de Goro.
Back in 1519, who brought that, what is it, Exitol or Exico, whatever it is, the chocolate stuff, the chocolate recipe.
That's right. They also have tapas, which is an appetizer. And actually, what it was, it started as something small, and now they have tapa time in Spain, and everybody takes a break.
Really?
You haven't heard of, they sit down, and from 2 to 4, the business is closed, and everybody enjoys a nice break for lunchtime.
Cool. This is looking pretty good, nice chocolatey. I get 2 eggs here. I'm going to add 2 eggs, okay? And these 2 eggs are...
Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop pork rind, and I'm going to dice some brunoise, which is an 1/8 of an inch dice. And we're going to let that render in another pot, which I'm actually going to set up in a second, to form the basis where we're going to saute the onions. for our fish chowder, actually.
Really? So we're pretty much getting close, aren't we?
Very close.
All right. I am going to do this. You don't want to mix this too much. I'm going to put the flour in. I put about a cup of sugar, 3/4 a cup of flour, and I got about a half a cup of nuts. Now, if you don't like nuts, don't put them in.
Exactly.
Right?
Nuts are optional.
Yep. Or you can make half nuts and half not nuts. And did you know that after Cortez came back and they made paste and all that stuff, that between something like 1580 and 1619 or 15,
I wouldn't know. I wasn't around then.
The Italians came up and really started catching on and using it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And that's when it started to make it real popular.
Really?
Yep.
I actually can't say I knew that.
So I've greased my pan here. And, you know, this actually calls for like an 8x8 pan. But if I use a little less, I mean a bigger pan, it'll cook in half the time. So this should be done in about 10-15 minutes.
That's excellent.
Yep.
Well, that's what we're thinking about when we do this.
Right?
Speed.
So by the time dinner is done,
you're done.
We're done for dessert. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it in this oven over here.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, in case you got those fast eaters who like to finish dinner extra early and skip to dessert.
And I'm going to take out my salmon, which is just about done, and I'm going to throw cheese on it. Okay. You can tell it's done. It's got that. It's not dry. When you see it as kind of like a moist, shiny type of thing, that's when it's done. Simmering, shiny.
Did you? No. I meant my stock is simmering. You want to heat it to a boil, and then you reduce the heat and let it simmer until you reach, you know, your quality factors. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to strain the stock through a chinois mousseline and keep that pan, and then what I'm going to do is, to keep the flavor in there, I'm going to render the fat right in there. Okay, and I'm going to put this back in. I put a little bit of cheese on it for people who like cheese, stuff like that. And the best part about the spoon is we can lick it later on. It doesn't quite taste like Cadbury, who was actually the guy back in 1824 who started developing chocolate. He ground the beans up, things like that. So that was Cadbury, John Cadbury, back in 18-something, 58 wow, that's
or
very
something
interesting.
Like that. You know what I want to do now is the very last step, because you're almost done, I'm almost done. Let's go over here and get the spinach. And we've got water in the pan, and let's turn it on. And let's simmer the spinach. And all we want to do is simmer it real quick. We don't want to take a lot of time. Well, just adding a little more fat. And what I'm going to do is start sauteing the onions right now. And I'll just be doing that. What are you going to do? Okay, I'm all ready for you. You're all ready? Yep. All right, well, the best thing is that now we've poured our stock into an empty pot. Well, we have 2 pots to work with, and we have only 3 more things to do, and that is to saute. Never talk to a student while he's working. It's a very bad choice, trust me. So we're going to have to saute the onions, and while we're doing that, we're just going to, after the onions are sauteed, there's going to be a liquid in there, and we're going to add the flour to the onions to make a roux. Okay. And that's going to thicken it. We're going to add the sauce, and then we're going to temper in heavy cream, which will thicken it up, and we'll add the cod. And that'll take, what, about 3 or 4 more minutes? Exactly. Okay, cool. Because I am all ready. I want to show you what I did. I threw some Pignolli nuts in here. And we can actually strain your I should have actually strained it probably. Huh? That's going, oh, Art, oh my goodness. So I'm going to put the fish in, okay, and show you what it looks like. Now look at this puppy. Doesn't that look good? And it was very easy. And look, oh, just so nice and juicy. Oh, throw some of that in there. Oh. And then what we'll do is I'll get the other one out. Excuse me. And here's the cod. I mean the haddock, excuse me.
For time constraints, I'm going to add a little more fat than usual to add an extra amount of liquid. And I'm going to saute it. After they're sauteed, sprinkle a little flour in there. That's going to lead and be the thickener for this sauce. And the final liaison, or final step, will be the heavy cream, and that will be tempered into there, which is the same temperature.
Okay.
In tempering, though, you have to do hot to cold, or else there will be an explosion.
We don't want any explosions around here, do we?
No, just when you're in the kitchen.
All right. Let me see. Alrighty. These are 2 meals right here. Should be that thanks to Mr. Ghiradelli, who came from Latin America, who moved to San Francisco, we have some really good chocolate here.
Not bad.
Not bad at all. So this was real easy. Couple eggs, little flour, sugar, no milk, stuff like that. Walnuts. Okay, so that looks about done, huh?
Actually, as we can point the camera over here, we're actually all done. I'm just going to pour a little bit of the soup into here.
Yep.
The chowder, sorry.
Looks really good.
It is pretty good. And that is our 3-course meal.
So here we have some nice brownies. We have made a nice chowder. And then we've got the spinach with the pine nuts, Pignollis. We've got the fish stumped in here, a bunch of different fishes in here.
Fish casserole,
yeah,
maybe.
Fish casserole. We've got the salmon.
You talking Boston style?
That's right, in the haddock. And brownies for dessert. So this is kind of like a meal, eh?
I'd call it a meal. And I'd say that's a wrap.
I think so too.
I'm Art Crandall.
I'm Art Crandall.
That's Cooking with the Crandalls.